I was a senior in college getting my degree in electrical engineering, and I don't even know why I picked up a book like that because I was all in on the traditional path. I've always wanted to be an engineer since kindergarten, and I was pretty good at math. But I read that book, and it, for the first time, reading that made me want to be an entrepreneur.
Welcome to the Creator's Adventure, where we interview creators from around the world, hearing their stories about growing a business. Today's guest is going to teach us how he grew his online piano course to more than $4 million in sales. Hey everyone, I'm Brian McAnulty, the founder of Heights Platform. Let's get into it. Many have asked me what software I use to record such high quality video for this podcast. I use Riverside, and what's great about Riverside is it records the local camera feed from you and your guests around the world, which means crisp 4K video without having to worry about blurriness due to internet hiccups. Riverside is also a great editor, fitting with my philosophy of making it easy for yourself to create because there is nothing that your guests or you have to download. We also use Riverside's AI magic clips to find interesting moments for our episode intros. And I'm happy to announce that Riverside is sponsoring this episode. And if you sign up at creators.riverside.fm/creatorsadventure and use code creatorsadventure, you'll get 15% off. You can find the link in the episode description as well. Now back to the show. Hey everyone, we're here today with Jacques Hopkins. He spent 8 years as an electrical engineer before quitting to turn his passion for music into a highly successful online piano course. Pianoin21days.com has generated over $4 million in revenue and has taught over 10,000 students worldwide. Today, Jacques supports his family with the passive income from his course while also teaching others how to replicate his success through the Online Course Show podcast. Jacques, welcome to the show.
What's up, Brian? I really appreciate the opportunity. I think we have a lot of things in common, so I'm pumped about this conversation. I know we both have some music background as well as fairly similar audiences with helping people with online courses and online course businesses. So I'm pumped to get into this, and I really appreciate the invitation having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, I'm glad to have you on, and you had me on your show as well recently too. So great to have the opportunity to talk with you here again. My first question for you is kind of maybe got to it in the intro a little bit, but I guess getting more into the nitty gritty than the online course itself, what would you say is the biggest thing that either you did or you are doing that helped you to achieve the freedom to do what you enjoy?
Oof. Okay. The biggest thing. There's a lot of things, right? There's a lot of things you have to do as a creator. What I find in working with other creators is that the course itself usually is the easiest part because we all have something that we can teach other people. For me, I tried different businesses and whatnot, and it just happened to be that I had this unique story around the piano and a unique way to be able to teach people the piano. And when I got the idea 11 years ago for an online course, the first thing I did was make an online course. It seems so simple, right? But there's so many other pieces to it that I didn't realize at the time that were necessary. And even today, a lot of people don't realize it as well because, they kind of were drawn to this because of that creative thing that they enjoy doing, teaching cooking, teaching kids to read, teaching photography, things like that. And so, you're most passionate about the course most likely, but there's so many other components. You've got to have traffic. You've got to have some sort of sales funnel. Urgency is good to have. You've got to put together a really good offer. You've got to know how to ask the right way for testimonials and case studies that are actually effective, and then how to use those. There's a lot there. But to answer, you asked for one, I would say the area people struggle with the most, and the area that probably took me the longest to figure out is the traffic piece. For me, 11 years ago, the best thing was a YouTube channel to generate traffic. And the reason I think it was so effective is because people were searching for solutions to a problem. They were looking for the solution in a video format. So they go to like YouTube, they type in how to play piano, how to learn piano quickly, and they get some videos from me. They find my stuff, and it gets them wanting to learn more. And the same type of person in general that's going to search for answers in video format will also typically be a good candidate to buy a video-based online course too, with an A to Z complete step-by-step system. And so I would say really focusing in on a YouTube channel would be my answer there. but it's not necessarily, that platform is not necessarily the best fit for everybody. It's niche dependent, right? You could start a podcast, right? Both of us had podcasts. Not a great traffic medium for teaching piano, right? Audio based. You really need to see my hands on the keyboard. So when I started my second brand, helping people with courses, I did go podcast for that in 2017. And so, figuring out a platform, a traffic generation and audience building platform would probably be my top recommendation. And today, even short form video is working really well, Instagram, TikTok. But like I said, it's very niche dependent, and it's dependent on the type of content you like to make as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's super important. Like realizing where is your audience and like where are they looking for something? Like you said, like they're searching on YouTube and they want to learn how to do the thing, so you can make the video about that thing. And eventually that's the kind of person they're trying to learn about that. They will want to take a course about that. So I would say I think YouTube is really great too. I think out of all the social media now, it's probably one of the best platforms, and also very creator focused and like their revenue share and everything. So I like that. But if you're somebody who's not into like being on video, or that doesn't necessarily fit with your niche or what you have to do, like blogging works, podcast work, all those other things, as you mentioned.
Yeah. And like in general, YouTube's still one of my main recommendations. And it's crazy how much the YouTube game has kind of changed over the years as well. And so if somebody, is listening to this and like, all right, you've convinced me, I'm going to do YouTube. I don't know how long you've been dabbling with YouTube, Brian, but when I first started, it was all about like keyword research and like using YouTube as a search engine, right? And that's what I focused on for many, many years, and it worked really well. If you're starting a YouTube channel today, the most important thing is the thumbnail, right? Because it's all about the algorithm and the recommendations. So you got to have really, really great thumbnails, and then you got to have a good title, and then you got to make sure the first like 5 seconds are amazing to really hook people in. And I don't even worry about keyword research with YouTube anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And the algorithm itself does a really good job of showing the thing to the right person, as long as you can get their attention with that title and thumbnail. What do you say to the person who is listening to this and is concerned about giving away too much of their content for free?
So that is just, from my experience, my own personal experience, and seeing so many examples, that's just not something to worry about. And you gotta trust me on that one, because with content marketing, YouTube or otherwise, you post content of just like isolated topics, right? So with piano, like I'll show you like one core concept in a video or one quick win in a video, but it's not an A to Z step-by-step system, right? And so if you go through my YouTube channel, there's nothing in my course that you won't find somewhere in my YouTube channel as well. But it would be really hard to like learn my whole system in the right order from just my YouTube videos, right? So we just give them a taste in our videos, and you don't have to draw a line anywhere with, I'm gonna save that for the course. I'm gonna save that for the course. You can make videos about all your stuff, but people buy the course not for the information, but for the transformation, the end result, the dream outcome that they're looking for. And so if you can get people to trust you, give them quick wins, ultimately, with my audience, they're looking to play songs they love on the piano in as little time as possible. And if I can sell them that dream, that's when they pull out their credit card to actually buy the course, versus just a YouTube video or two.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the packaging of everything in that step-by-step format to take them to the result, that's what they want to buy. And I think that it leads to another thing that you mentioned earlier already, where people might say, well, what if somebody makes a YouTube playlist and constructs all the perfect things, and it's not just your videos, but it's somebody else's, and now it is this step-by-step. Well, the other part of it is the unique messages and experiences from you as an individual creator. And you mentioned that a little bit earlier, that you felt you had these unique experiences to share. How do you think that, like, how would you describe that, I guess, the unique messages of like what makes you different than another person out there teaching piano?
Yeah, I really think everybody should have their own unique kind of special sauce. So here, where I live in Louisiana, we have this fast food chain that started here, and it's one of the fastest growing fast food chains. It's called Raising Cane's. Have you heard of it? Chicken
Yeah.
fingers.
Yeah.
They're so good. It's nothing about it is healthy. It's kind of a guilty pleasure. But their menu is extremely limited. They have chicken fingers, they have French fries, they have toast, they have drinks. But you can get chicken fingers anywhere, right? I was a couple years ago. We spent a few months in France in a really small town, and then we biked to a neighboring town was even smaller, itty bitty town because they had an amazing beach. And we're at this beach, kind of in the middle of nowhere, and they have this little hut with food and drinks. So we're in the middle of nowhere in Europe at the beach, and they had a very limited menu, but on the menu they had chicken fingers. My point is, like, you can get chicken fingers anywhere, right? So why is Raising Cane's one of the fastest growing fast food chains in the world? It's because their sauce. They have this sauce. That's why everybody goes there, is because everything you get there, you dip it in the sauce, and I've tried to make it myself. It's hard to replicate. Other restaurants have it replicated, and so that's the reason that you go to Raising Cane's is for their special sauce, not necessarily for the chicken fingers, because you can get those everywhere. So when we're creating marketing channels, content marketing channels, online courses, we don't want to just be generic. We don't want to just teach piano just like everybody else. You got to have some kind of special sauce. And for me, my story plays into that and really resonates with people because I took piano lessons as a kid for 12 years. I'm not naturally musical at all. I'm very left brain. You mentioned already I was an engineer for 8 years before this allowed me to quit. And so I never practiced. I never really loved it. I was just kind of a good kid and wanted to make my parents happy. They wanted me in piano lessons, so I took it. But after 12 years in piano lessons, I literally could play 2 songs on the piano. And I'd kind of discovered a different way to learn and play songs on the piano using more of a guitar approach, like with guitar chords and improvisation, rather than sheet music, not playing by ear. And so I actually started, once I learned that, I started enjoying piano for the first time in my life. And several years later, when I was trying to start some sort of online business, I thought that might be my ticket because I had this kind of special sauce on how to play songs on the piano quickly. And so that's what I recommend people have, is something like that to stand out.
Yeah, I think that's great. And that's such a powerful point too, because it also not only highlights like what makes you different and how that's important. Like, I love online courses, not only because you can start it without like having to pay somebody a bunch of money to like develop software or buy like expensive like product that you have to have manufactured. You can pretty much do it for free. But also, like, you have basically no competition because nobody is you. So nobody can exactly sell the same product that you're selling. Where if somebody's on Amazon and you order some product from Alibaba, you might be selling the exact same thing that 100 other people are selling. It's really hard to differentiate on that. And so it's hard to have the special sauce, as you're saying. But with the course, not only can you have that and you can share that and it's valuable, but I think it also points to what you get to choose when you create the content. So I'm thinking about this. I'm a guitar player, and I think my approach to learning guitar has been maybe similar, maybe different in some ways, but I also was not a fan of sheet music or like traditional music theory. Eventually I learned that, but I just wanted to learn how to play things, and more than playing other songs, I would play things I made up in my head. And I would make something up that sounds cool, and then I would kind of try to write my own songs. And I could see creators out there who would say, okay, well, if that's me, I can't make a course because people want to learn the music theory. They want to learn all that. And I'm not into that. I don't know that very well. I shouldn't teach that. But if I was going to make a guitar course, I would teach it exactly the way that I wanted to learn it, and that I did it because there will be other people that will resonate with. And so as a creator, you don't have to feel that you know it exactly some certain way. You can teach it the way that you know it and that you experienced it, and that will be valuable.
I'm glad you brought that up, Brian, because you as the creator, like you and your story can kind of be the special sauce, but I like for people to have like a key and core framework that they're teaching as well that you're not really going to find anywhere else. And that really, the importance of that really was highlighted for me when I was at a big marketing conference a few years ago. I know you run your own SaaS product. I'm not on this platform anymore, but at the time, ClickFunnels, I'm sure you've heard of it. They do a massive event every year, Russell Brunson and whatnot. And I went to the event. It was the reason I went was it was I'd done the $1 million from a funnel thing, and I got to go on stage and get my plaque. You can't see it on camera now; it's back here, and get my picture with Russell Brunson and everything. But it was a great event. Tony Robbins was there, lots of speakers. But as I'm listening to all the speakers, I noticed a common thread with every single presentation that people gave. Even and Russell Brunson came out like every other speaker was Russell Brunson coming out teaching something. Everybody had a framework to share, and I realized this was a few years ago that that's one of the things that has made Piano in 21 Days successful is I have this core framework. It's called my 5-step song learning process that really we're just like building up through the entire course on how to get better and better and better at that. And so by the end of the course, after the 21 days, they have this amazing tool, this amazing framework that they can go off and apply to new songs on their own. They got to follow these 5 steps. Now it takes the whole course to really understand how to apply those 5 steps. But I share the 5 steps on YouTube, going back to the earlier conversation. But it really takes my course to really understand and really know how to apply it really well. And I realized that that's one of the main things that was holding me back in my second brand for helping people with online courses was I didn't have any frameworks like that. Yeah, I had me and my story, and that was helpful. But I didn't have any like core frameworks to work people through. And it was that day that I really developed my core framework that I teach now called the Online Course Business Formula. And that's been a total game changer. So I recommend people really hone in on their special sauce from those two angles in terms of really your story and your uniqueness, but then also some special framework that you can share with people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice. So you mentioned earlier, and I mentioned in the intro, you were an engineer. I'm curious, and I think others would be curious as well, like where was the moment when you realized you wanted to start your own business and you decided to kind of pursue online course creation?
You ever heard of this really not well-known book called The 4-Hour Workweek?
Yep.
I'm obviously joking. I think everybody's heard of it at this point. I was a senior in college getting my degree in electrical engineering, and I don't even know why I picked up a book like that. Because I was all in on the traditional path. I've always wanted to be an engineer since kindergarten, and I was pretty good at math. And but I read that book, and it for the first time reading that made me want to be an entrepreneur because of the things Tim Ferriss was able to experience because of his business. Just like all the adventures and living in Buenos Aires and dance competitions and martial arts competitions and riding motorcycles and all the cool things that the way he set up his business allowed him to do. Up until that point, I wasn't drawn to entrepreneurship because it seemed like a lot of work. It seemed like you needed a lot of money, like funding or debt. It seemed like it required a brick and mortar presence. And so I kind of learned about like online business and that being an entrepreneur didn't have to mean all those things. It was a total paradigm shift for me reading that book. And I already had my job lined up and everything. But ever since reading that, I wanted that. I wanted that lifestyle business. So that was certainly the moment. It wasn't easy. I tried a lot of different things. I don't think he specifically mentions like online courses in that book. So I think actually creating an online course business was probably the 7th different idea that I tried to start, but the first one that even made $1. I tried a bunch of different things trying to set up some sort of lifestyle business, and an online course business is the one that ultimately worked for me several years later.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I had similar experiences from 4-Hour Workweek, like I'm sure many others have. For me, the biggest thing about it, like I already had by that point decided, okay, I'm starting my own business. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. But the idea of, oh, I can have these experiences and travel the world and all that, it was something that, okay, that seems interesting, but it didn't click for me yet until I read that book. And then I saw like, oh, this is possible. And sometimes I think you don't need to even be told how to do it. You just have to see that it's possible from somebody else. And then that's really all you need to get going with it. And I, like you, also tried all kinds of different businesses. And we're both here today involved in online courses. I think that there's a lot of people out there who would tell you, oh, you got to focus. You just got to focus on this one thing. You just got to keep doing that. But I do think there's a lot of value in, especially beginning creators and entrepreneurs, in trying those different businesses. And it's not just about like finding out what you make money with, but finding out what works for you and what you enjoy. And in the space of online courses, it's so neat that it's not just courses. Like you can have coaching programs or communities, courses, memberships, all these different business models of how you can structure it. And so even if one doesn't necessarily fit the way that you want to teach or sell or create a product, then maybe another one does.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's really we often just talk about courses, but there's so many options here, and it's all various digital products. And I definitely recommend people start maybe more on the coaching side, even one-on-one coaching if they want to get into this and help people get those wins. Because it's one thing for you to experience something for yourself, like, oh, I learned how to play piano this way and it worked for me. Or I know I taught my kid to read this way, but that's one example, right? So if you can start slow and actually get results for other people and work with them intimately, you'll learn so much about other people as well. And so you can start with one-on-one, you can do group coaching, and eventually get to a more passive approach with a course or a membership.
Yeah. What about for the person listening to this right now and they're saying, okay, like Jacques, Brian, like Jacques just talked about starting six different things before he even got to online courses. Like, how do you find the motivation to continue with that if you have these different things that you're trying and it's not quite working out the way that you want?
Ooh, good question, man. Well, I'd be curious to hear what you think about it. Like for me, it was always just like eye on the prize type situation. Like I saw what was possible. And then once I read that book, I started listening to podcasts and hearing other people like beyond just Tim Ferriss experiencing these similar things where they had created more of a lifestyle business. So I knew it was possible. People were doing it. And it just felt like a matter of time before I figured it out, So it was just a matter of remembering that it was possible, and that if other people could do it, why not me, right? What
Yep.
about you, Brian? What's your answer to that?
Yeah, I think I've always had a similar mindset that instead of thinking, well, I can't do this thing or all the reasons why I can't, um, it's more from like looking at a standpoint of like, well, why not? What would really stop me from doing this? And realizing that if you think carefully about it, most of the reasons are more excuses than actual reasons. And so you can go and do that thing. And yeah, seeing that it's possible, and I guess really having a belief that it is in myself, and knowing also that I do believe I can get there to that path. And also I think the whole traveling the world thing, it's probably easier to see about that now. But like when his book first came out, there was no like digital nomad as a term even. There's no Airbnb. And so then it was in maybe a little bit harder and more eye-opening for people to see that he did that, but it's actually not expensive. So especially if you live in like a Western country, it's actually possible you could go and travel, maybe even spend less money than you were at home. And so I think there's a lot of information out there online about how you can make it work, and have maybe smaller goals and things for yourself as you keep going with it. But I've always also had the approach of it's not about like how am I gonna like make the most money, but how am I gonna do the thing that is what I enjoy, and always like relentlessly focusing on that and thinking about, oh well, this might make me more money, but I don't care. It can't pull me away from the lifestyle that I want to have. And as part of that lifestyle, though, it is growing my business, and I realize that fulfillment in myself as a human is that continued progression and growth. And I tried the full like 4 hour work week around 2017. Basically, didn't work at all. Just had like the income from my businesses that were still coming in and lived off that, and it was okay. But definitely there was a lack of fulfillment, and I wanted to build something else after that. And so I think most people's goal should be finding the thing that they would do and they would work on every single day, and they would work on that thing today and tomorrow, regardless of what today's outcome was.
That's a solid answer too. You know what you're doing. Look, it makes me also think of another angle to take with it too is it's this type of business we're talking about. The downside and the risk is so low in general, right? And so I think if I say I want to be an entrepreneur and I go the super traditional path where you're opening up some sort of storefront and you have inventory and you need funding or you need to take out a lot of debt and it doesn't work out, that's like detrimental. And it may make you not want to try a second thing. And sometimes, a lot of times the first thing you try isn't going to work. And with digital product-based businesses, you just start putting yourself out there. You start putting out content. You start putting together a website. You can keep the costs very minimal. It's just mostly your time at the beginning. And, I'm not saying there's no downside, no risk, because it's, everybody's time is very precious and valuable. But I think that should be motivating for people in that if it doesn't work out, you haven't wasted a lot of money. You've wasted, quote unquote, some time, but hopefully it's not actually wasted time because you've learned something and you can do that better for the next idea that you get.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's something that's so neat about it. If you do enjoy it and just can constantly work at it and learn from what you're having mistakes with, like it's the same for everybody. Like nobody came to this and is like, I know everything I'm doing. Like everybody's figuring out as they go. And yeah, you can keep trying things. And if you do, I'm happy to say, like, I've seen so many examples of people who do become successful with that. So I think as long as you keep at it long enough, then you're on a path to some kind of success. You don't have to build $1 billion business or $10 million business, a $4 million business. It could be like they're just a business that's just enough to pay all your bills. Maybe it's a side hustle, maybe whatever, but there's something that you can build with that in pretty much anything. So I think one of the things that's interesting even to point out here is your online course is so successful. You've made over $4 million in revenue from a piano course. And most of the time, I think people see or hear about this kind of result from like the course that's teaching you how to make money or something like that, rather than like a more artistic or like hobby-based course. So what would you say in your case was the biggest factor that contributed to the success of like the growth of the revenue to get it that big?
Starting early certainly helped. I started in 2013, but of course that's not all there is to it, because people are very successful starting in more recent years as well. But I did start early, and it's just learning all the different pieces and parts of how to do everything right. I didn't know anything about marketing and sales when I started. I was writing computer programs for my job. And so little things like selling the dream outcome versus the information, right? Not focusing on how many modules there are and how many hours of content there are when we're trying to sell the course, and really honing in on the outcome and transformation people can experience. And people do want to learn piano, and people struggle. They've tried different methods. A lot of people have it on their bucket list, always wanted to learn. I didn't expect this when I started, but over like 80% of my audience is over 55 years old. So I have a much older audience. It's people that took piano lessons as a kid and like it didn't stick, and they've always regretted that they can't actually play today, or they've just like always, it's just like I said, a bucket list item. They've always wanted to learn how to play. And so just like getting to know who my actual audience is, and then being able to speak to them in a way that makes them want to work with me and buy my course and get that ultimate result they're looking for.
Yeah, that's great. And I see here, so it looks like you are using an evergreen funnel kind of approach to sell your courses.
Oh yeah,
And on the
absolutely.
show, we've talked about like different creators having different kinds of funnels and things that they like. I think all of them work in different ways, but for our listeners who are maybe either not familiar with this or just curious in your particular preferences, can you explain both what an evergreen funnel is and then how it's helping you with your course sales?
Yeah. That was one of the last like missing pieces for me in my business before it really started taking off. It took me several years to find any sort of success. I was about 3 years into the business and bringing in about $1,000 a month, right? Still working my job, about $1,000 a month, which was, it was cool, right? Like being able to make money while I sleep and all that. It was amazing, but it wasn't what I was hoping for. And I was listening to a podcast one day where this guy was talking about the success of his online course business, and he talked mostly about his evergreen sales funnel. And look, I didn't even really know what a funnel was. This was, I think, 2016. And but here was a guy selling an online course using this funnel. And that podcast episode I listened to was amazing because he walked the listener through exactly like how his funnel worked, how it was all set up. And I pretty much like listened to that episode several times and mimicked what he was saying. And implementing a sales funnel into my business without changing anything else, that's what took me from $1,000 a month to $10,000 a month. 10x my business by having an evergreen funnel, a good one. So it's really powerful. And what it is a way to sell to like people that are new to your world. And you've got to have some sort of evergreen urgency deadline built into it. So urgency is the main reason that a funnel will work so well, is because something is going away. Something is going away. The three main types of urgency we can use for an online course business would be availability, meaning the entire offer goes away. The second form of urgency is a discount. The discount's going away. The third form is some sort of bonuses going away. And you could possibly say there's a fourth if you want to combine those in any way. Hey, this bonus and this discount are going away, something like that. And so at the time, the form of urgency I used, because it's what this person recommended on the podcast, was the availability approach. Don't make your course available all the time, only like within the funnel. And so when people would come to my website and they would opt in for my lead magnet, they would start the funnel, and then it was like a 10 or 12 day sequence to where they could buy. And then the deadline came. And after that point, they could no longer buy. They weren't able to buy. So the opportunity was going away. Now I've since switched that model to my preferred form of urgency, which is a discount. So now you can go to my website and actually buy the course right now if you wanted to. But if you're in the evergreen funnel, then you have an opportunity to buy the course at 20% off. And that deadline, when it goes away, is different for everybody because it's based on when you first opt into the funnel. So sometimes I'm not great at explaining things. How is that? Does that make sense? Do you think that
No,
makes sense to your
that's
audience?
good. I think if you think about any other products that like you've purchased from the brand or that you see in your email lists, email inbox, things like this, there's always a reason that that brand has to think of or come up with for why you should buy it now. And urgency is a really great one of those reasons. And yeah, having that in a way can be really helpful, not only to get you the sales, because it pushes the potential prospect over the edge of actually buying it, but it also kind of helps people get out of their own way, because if they really do want to learn from you, there are some people that are probably putting it off and say, oh, I'd really like to take that piano course. Then they forget about it. Life happens
Mm.
and they just don't enroll. But if you give them some reason with that urgency and say, hey, you can't enroll after this period, or the discount's gonna go away after this period, then people will have a stronger reason to say like, okay, this is why this has to be like top of my mind right now, that I've got to go and join it at this
Yeah.
moment. So
And
yeah,
it only works if you've got a great product that actually helps people, right? We're not trying to dupe people in any way. But like you said, we've got to give them a reason to buy now because we know how amazing our product is and how much it's going to help them. And when my form of urgency was availability, it always made me feel a little uneasy where like a digital product was like not available. You know what I mean? And I would like every now and then I get an email from somebody who saw through it and is like, what are you talking about? It's not available. Like it's a digital product. And so I feel that's why I feel so much better just like from an authenticity standpoint with a discount going away. Because that's, I
Yeah.
mean, companies run discounts. That's a very normal way to do urgency. You go to the store, or the clothing store, like they're running a limited time sale. You can get products at a discounted price. We're very used to that. So I no longer get those messages. I kept my funnel otherwise the same. It's just that I'm promoting a 20% off versus the whole offer is going away.
Yeah, yeah. I hate seeing like those the fake like countdown timers and things that you go to a site, there's a countdown, but then like you go back to the page and now the countdown refreshed itself. It's
No, 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 no. It's got to
back to
be
before.
real. If you
Yeah, so
say if you say it's going away, it needs to actually go away.
yeah,
That's my opinion.
it can be fake and it'll even work for you if it's fake, but just to feel better about yourself and there's going to be, like you said, some people that see through it. So I think it helps your audience when you can really just be real about it and they know you're not trying to trick them in any way. So yeah, I would always be authentic about having real urgency. But I think there's a way that you can still use availability urgency and have it be real. So like there's some cases where you have this like really interactive course where people like you got to have a lot of interaction with all the students. And if it was truly evergreen that people could enroll anytime, it kind of becomes just too hard to manage once you get to a certain scale. But if you could do something and say like, okay, we're going to launch in the spring and then the summer and then fall and have these different periods that people can enroll, then you're doing that. Not only does it add some urgency in that way, but it's real because then you can help everybody through at the same time. And when you get a message from somebody, it's not like, oh, where is this person even at in my course? You know that they're on like the second week because it just launched again this spring. And so, yeah, that's a way to do it as well. So I've got another question. I'm curious if you could pick one thing of somebody starting out with their online course, what's one piece of advice you wish you knew earlier on in your journey?
Oof. One piece of advice. Okay, how about this? You're gonna get haters. You're gonna get haters. I heard a quote. The only surefire way to not get attacked is to do nothing important, right? And so if you can like, because when I first like, the response has always been mostly positive, but there's certainly like who's really mean to me is like normal piano teachers, right? Because it's like who's this guy coming
Okay.
in saying you can
Mm,
teach in just 21 days? Like they're like, oh, it takes a lifetime to learn piano. This is
mm,
rubbish. Um, and so you got to have thick skin because if you're doing something important and you're putting yourself out there, there's always going to be mean people out there, and you just like if I could just like let you know at the beginning, like it's going to happen. And guess what? If it happens, that's actually a good thing. Unless 100% of the comments are negative, that's probably a bad thing. But it's look at it as a good thing because that means your message is getting out there. People are seeing it. And like I said, the only surefire way to not get attacked is to do nothing important.
yeah. Yeah. And if you try so hard to make your message one that no one will criticize, you're then no one will criticize it because you're not going to get any attention around it. So it's a sign that yeah, you're getting seen, and yeah, no matter what you want to try to do, once you really get out there and people do see it, you're going to get the haters. Like I have examples of where I've literally given something away completely for free. And it wasn't like, oh, if you get this free and then you're in my funnel, now you can buy the course. Like, no, I'm just giving it to you for free because maybe you will get to know the brand and like we have a software so you can buy our software eventually, but there's no like paid upgrade version to a course or something. It's just free content. And I remember having people comment on it and say like, I don't believe you. And say, well, I'll give it to you. Like, just let me DM you right now. You don't even have to give me your email. I will just give it to you. But it will happen. So yeah, I think it's good to become comfortable with that. And it's something that you just have to do over time. And the more you experience it, you'll start to realize, oh, there's going to be haters, and you can it's annoying, but you get to deal with it better.
Yeah. And my best tip is like to deal with it too is make sure you're saving the positive comments too, because that's what
Yeah.
really keeps me going is the positive comments. So certainly like if people provide you like video testimonials and all that, that's great. But also the little comments people leave you on social media or YouTube that are positive, save those. My assistant always saves those for me in a folder, and I like if I'm feeling down or like I get more negative comments than normal, I can always refer back to that and be like, oh yeah, like what I'm doing matters. It's helping people, and that helps you to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes the hateful comments, like they're also not directly about you, but about like that person's
Yeah.
actual inner fears or worries or doubts. Like they actually want your help. And I've also had experiences where there was like a hater that turned into an amazing customer and they really
Mm.
love you, but they had their own concerns and things in the beginning, and so they weren't sure what to think. So yeah, I think that can definitely be the case too. I've got one more question for you, and on the show we like to have every guest ask a question to the audience. So if you could ask our audience anything, whether it's something you're curious about, something you want to get people thinking about, what would that be?
There's a question I like to ask my clients from time to time that I think can be really helpful, can be really powerful. And so think of this, and this is more for people that have already gotten started. It's like if a new like as the creator here, you are the CEO of your company, right? And so if a new CEO were to come in and like replace you in your business, what would be the next like 3 steps that they would take in order to grow your business? And that question is really powerful because, I could also say, hey, what are the next 3 steps you think you should take? But when you think about it from another perspective, you're thinking about, oh, okay, if somebody else came in that knew what they were doing, then they would probably do this and they would do that. It gets you thinking about things in a way that you wouldn't think of otherwise. So that would be my challenge is think about if somebody else were coming in to be the CEO of the company, of your company, what would be the next 3 steps they would take to grow?
Yeah, I love that because I think for many creators, there's going to be something that for some reason you have an excuse that you're not doing it, but you know deep down that that's a thing you should do. And, or maybe you're not even thinking about it, but having that framing will kind of uncover that for you.
Yeah, it can uncover things that either you hadn't thought of or that you didn't like you kind of pushed it aside because you're like, well, I couldn't do that. But it's like, why not? If somebody else can come in and do that, why can't you?
Yeah, exactly. All right, awesome. Well, Jacques, thanks so much for coming on the show. Before we get going, where else can people find you online?
Cool. So pianoin21days.com. That's my piano stuff, pianoin21days.com. And then my other brand is theonlinecourseguy.com. So I've got, training there about the online course business formula that I mentioned. But then at the very least, I've got a podcast too, the Online Course Show. Probably very similar to this podcast. I interview other course creators and just kind of dive into their stories and find out what's made them successful in all kinds of different niches. So that's once again the Online Course Show.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much.
And most recently featuring the one and only Brian McAnulty.
Yeah, definitely. Go check out that episode if you want to learn a little bit about me more as well.